culture of your company is dictated by the first 5 people you hire. And so be very, very careful about the right attitude. And every company I started, if you looked at the culture of the company, it is the first 5 people. They really set it.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Craig Rupp. And Craig left high school and got got an electrical engineering degree, and then went to work for Motorola. After working for Motorola, started his first company in 1995. Has now started a total of 6 companies. The first company was a consulting company for the wireless industry, and then went to work for John Deere for a period of time. Started another company that was called 640 Labs, and started with a friend collecting data for agricultural endeavors or equipment, and then that got acquired. Started another company focusing on autonomous equipment, and then leads a little bit to where he's at today. So with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast, Craig.
All right. Thank you, Devin, for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So I just took a much longer journey and condensed into the 30-second version. So let's unpack that a bit. So tell us a little bit about how your journey got started coming out of high school and going into electrical engineering.
Yeah, I grew up on a farm in Northwest Iowa, and I always say I was the spare, not the heir. My brother still farms, and I decided that I wanted to become an electrical engineer. So I went to college, got my bachelor's, and then I got my master's degree in electrical engineering, and then worked at Motorola in Chicago. And that's really what took me to Chicago. And having a footing in Chicago was started with Motorola. I worked there on GSM, which is a digital cellular system. The first digital cellular system, and Iridium, which is a satellite-based communication system. And then I left and started my first company, which was called Alliance Technologies Group.
One question just on that. So you working for Motorola, and how long did you work for Motorola
there? 6 years. And you know what? It was a great company. I loved working for Motorola. Met just some incredible people. I still, friends, we get together yearly, just a bunch of us from Motorola that work together. But, that company really made me who I am today, in part just because of just the brilliant engineers that I worked around.
Oh, that's awesome. It's always great to make some of those connections early on in your career. So you worked there for about 6 years, and then what was kind of the tipping point, or what made you decide to kind of dip your toe in the entrepreneur, doing your own business, or starting out and leaving? Because Motorola is a big company, especially in the 90s. It was in its heyday, and it was, or cutting edge for cell phones and for a lot of other electronics, and they're still around today. They're not probably quite as big as they used to be, or not as well known, but it was certainly a great company. So what made you decide you wanted to go out on your own?
Okay, it started with when I was working at Motorola. Motorola went out and they signed a contract with another company, and they paid the company $6 million. And this company, it was going to take a while for this company to fulfill the contract. And then, so they decided, in the meantime, myself and 2 other people at Motorola will fill in the gap and create this. Basically, we were doing everything that was written in this contract. And, we're looking, we're going, what we're doing is for $6 million, Motorola paid that. So, the 3 of us, we got together, for breakfast in the morning, over the course of 2-3 months. And so we started a company, and we were at Motorola, so it was kind of hush hush. because we it was totally underground, and we started this company, and we made a deal. If we could get 3 months of life, 3 months of contracts that would keep us, maintaining a certain level of income, then we would leave. And then, once we were established and we made a couple sales, that 2 weeks later we resigned, put our letter of resignation in at Motorola. But it was fun times. It was a blast.
Now I say, okay, we've reached, we kind of started at hush hush. There's a side hustle, kind of get it up and going. When we reach a bit of enough of a level of sales, we have, enough, at least enough of a comfort level to say, hey, there's a potential that this will work. And you dive in full time. You put in your 2 weeks, you dive in full time. Now, as you did that, how did it go? Was it just your thought and it continued to grow and was successful, or you got into it and said, oh, this is a lot harder full time and wish I'd never quit, or kind of how'd that go for you?
No, I mean, so we were disciplined enough that we knew that we could not operate this company while we were working at Motorola, and everything we were doing was basically just establishing the company, putting a word out on the street that, hey, there's these 3 guys, they contract engineer. And, so our name, we were working with other salespeople, people that run around from company to company selling, let's say integrated circuits or silicon. And, they would put our name out on the street. And, eventually, it was 2-3 weeks. Then all of a sudden we had enough contracts to last us for at least 3 months. So, that's really how that company started. But it was, like I said, it was a lot of fun and a lot of interesting. This is the first time I've ever, I was scared straight. I had a wife and 2 kids. I'm going to leave a perfectly good paying job with great insurance, and I'm going to go out on my own. It was, there were long nights, laying awake at night wondering, God, am I good enough to do this? Those questions go through my mind.
And I say, so, and I think everybody has those questions in your mind a bit of, is it the right decision? I had a good paying job, is this going to work out? And then, some weeks it's great and you're euphoric and it's going wonderful. And next week you're saying, well, slow, or sales are slow this week, or we're not having as much work come in. Is this the right decision? And I think it's always one of those constantly battling, because when you work for someone else, you don't have to worry about all that. You don't see what the sales are at. You don't have to see if they're making a lot of money or not. You just worry about doing your job. And as long as they keep paying the bills, you're good to go. And so I always think there's a bit more of that, that trade-off. But so now as you're coming out of that and saying, okay, overall, it's been a good experience, going well. The company is prospering and moving forward. And then I think that you mentioned, now was the next step to do a different start? Because I know you mentioned you had a total of, I think 6 or so startups you've done. Did you go on to another startup from there, or was that a point that you went to John Deere?
So we grew to about 20 people, and we were all contractors. We're all, guns for hire. Companies would come to us for embedded work, for RF work, doing a lot of radios design. 2000, 2001, the economy just, was in the dumps. And, we started having to lay off people. And then the 3 of us that started the company, we just said, do we want to continue doing this? It was always our intention that we're going to be a product company, so we can actually, instead of just contracting, getting paid by the hours, where your people are really, what you're selling. We tried to become a product company. And the problem with, if you're a contracting company, it's really, really hard to turn that into a product company, because time after time after time, we're dedicating, we're all right, we're all in, we're going to create this product, And what happens then is a deal comes through the door and that carrot gets waved in front of you. And, hey, we're looking 2 months out. We got to make payroll. We got to take this job. I'm sorry. So we're going to put it on the side. That happened probably a half a dozen times. We never really ever became a product company. And so the three of us just went our separate ways. It was just, there was no animosity. We just went our separate ways. And then I decided I'm going to go out and get a job, a normal job. And then that's when I went to John Deere.
And I think that makes sense. And that's always kind of, I said, it's a hard one where, sometimes it's the balance of, well, if we hold out a little bit longer, maybe it will take off, or, it's this next project and then it'll be good. And yet on the same time, it's always that back and forth, and you're saying, is it worth it, or are we going to make a go of it? And at some point you have to kind of, hit or set that deadline or line in the sand as to what you're going to do or when it's going to make sense. It sounds like at a point you hit that kind of, okay, we've tried this, made a go of it, just never quite turning out as far as making a product and being a product company as you'd hope. So you went to work for John Deere. Now, as you're going back, because sometimes it's hard, you're going from being able to run your own ship, do your own thing, make your own decisions, to kind of going back into the corporate atmosphere. And some people saying, great, I don't have to worry about all this stuff that I used to have to worry about. And other people saying, I still want to do my own thing. So as you're going back in to kind of work more for John Deere and in a bit more of a corporate setting, how did that go? How long did you last? And what was that part of your journey like?
It was actually a great experience for me. Although I worked in a very large company, the group I was in was very entrepreneurial. It was a small group of, there were 20, 30 of us, but it was really a small set of people. And the little island that we were on, it was very entrepreneurial. And just over the course of 2-3 years that I was there, we developed 2 products, which turned out to be the basically 2 pinnacle products John Deere had in regards to precision ag: the Starfire receiver and the Green Star display. But it was great. Decisions were made very quick. We were really hands off. I mean, there wasn't a lot of management, focused on us, controlling our day to day. We knew what needed to get done, and we were experienced enough, and we just, we were running 100 miles an hour.
Sounds like a fun place to be. And so now, how long did you stay at John Deere? How long did you work in that position?
It was like 2 to 3 years, and then we delivered the product, and then I get bored easily. So I'm like, well, okay, so these are out, they're out in the market, they're getting sold, they're taking off. Warranty return was next to nothing. And I decided that I'm going to go out and rekindle Alliance Technologies Group, but this time with a focus.
And so you say, okay, so that if you're saying rekindle, so basically going back to the consulting company that you previously done that didn't, you could never quite get to where you wanted it to. So you took a reprieve for 2 or 3 years with John Deere, and then you decided to kind of reinvigorate that. Now, did you go and do that? Did you re-engage some of the other people that worked on that company with you, saying, hey, I want a fresh start, do it my way, or kind of, how did you kind of, or go back after that?
Yeah, what I did was I went out, started on my own, and I was focused now absolutely strictly focused on RF signal test and measurement. And so I would write a lot of algorithms based off of performing RF test and measurements. I look back at my skill set. So I spent a lot of time doing hardware development. I did a lot of time doing RF system development. I knew algorithm development, and I looked at my skill set and I said, well, when this company is only going to be focused on creating RF test and measurement algorithms. And then I was all over the world implementing these algorithms for various RF standards: GSM, Edge, CDMA, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. It was just strictly focused on creating these measurement algorithms.
That makes sense. And so now as you're reinvigorating that, kind of doing it yourself and taking in the direction I think will be successful, how did it go? Was it successful? Where did you go to next, or kind of what was that next phase?
It was very successful in that I worked with a lot of large companies throughout the world, working on their manufacturing lines. And if you've ever been in, high volume manufacturing, like cellular, for example, rule of thumb is it's $1 million per second per line per year. So if you go onto a manufacturing floor and they have 16 lines, if you can reduce the test time by 1 second, then you could save $16 million a year in test time. And so, I mean, that was the goal. What I would do is go in, and the current algorithms you're using, I would create faster algorithms, use parallelization, and there's various tricks you can play. You can actually make your measurement algorithm worse, but good enough. It's always measurement accuracy and precision and test time. And what you can do is, if your measurement's too good, what you do is purposely you give up test time for accuracy. And I did quite a lot of that working with companies. But then it was, oh gosh, in 2005-06 timeframe, then my company was acquired by National Instruments out of Austin, Texas. And so that was the first my first successful exit, I guess.
No, that's great, and it's always, any exit's always, or it can be good, but even better if it's a successful exit. So now you've exited out of that company, you sold it off, and kind of what did you do? How did you figure out what you're going to do next, or where did it take you from there?
Then I spent 9 years working at National Instruments. Again, a very entrepreneurial company. I mean, it is, National Instruments is one of the most unique companies I've ever seen out there. The way Dr. Trishard, James Trishard, who founded the company and ran the company, was the CEO. It was an awesome company to work for. I really liked working for that company. Very entrepreneurial. They let me do anything I want. And then I used to run around the country and run around the world, working in manufacturing sites and getting to know, just a lot of these companies out there. So I spent 9 years doing that, and I absolutely loved it.
Now you spend, because it seems like if I were to maybe kind of look at your journey a bit, you have a bit of a pattern, right? So you go work for a big company for a few years, then you go out on your own, and then you go work for a big company and you go out on your own, and kind of, it almost seems like you kind of go back and forth. So is that just happenstance, or is it kind of, hey, once I do something on my own for a while, I want to break, or once I do something for someone else, I want to go do it on my own, or kind of what was that guiding principles to kind of move you back and forth between working for yourself and working for others?
So there is, you're right, and you're very astute. There seems to be a pattern here. I guess when I left John Deere and when I left National Instruments, I knew I didn't leave the barn empty, for lack of a better term, meaning that, like, at National Instruments, I worked around a group of really young people, and I taught them everything I know. and I'm like, this company can stand on their own now. The National Instruments was new, was the new kid on the block going into RF, and they needed RF algorithms, and I spent the 9 years building a team from a technical point of view, how to develop these algorithms, how to test the actual test algorithms. And it came to a point in my career, I'm like, I'm done here. I've taught them everything I know, and there's a good group of people there that can carry on, and I have to go off and do other things now.
Hmm. No, I think that definitely makes sense. So now you come back, and I think that coming back, you went there, went and worked for others for a period of time, and then kind of maybe or fast forwarding just a bit to where you're at today. You've again kind of gone out on your own and started your current business, which is I think with autonomous equipment and some things and that nature. So maybe give us an idea of where fast forwarding a bit to the present, so we can hear what you're up to today. Where are you at today? Kind of where did the journey lead you, and what are you up to?
Yeah, but there's one more stint in there.
Hmm.
Well, and I think I mentioned, my talents and how, they're RF signal processing. I have this background in agriculture, and that really helped getting into John Deere because, I'm a farm boy, and myself and another friend of mine, Corbett Cool, who I worked with at Motorola. He and I got together and decided to starting companies, and we started a data company in Oklahoma. That's another story, but I knew that there is something about agriculture and technology, so we started a company called 640 Labs. And what we were doing is collecting data off of farm machinery, farm equipment, anything with an engine, a tractor, an applicator, combine. And we were taking all that data and going up into the cloud. So we got acquired by Monsanto in 2014. And then I kept getting pulled back into agriculture. And I spent 4 years at the Climate Corporation, which is a subsidiary of Climate. And I just talked to a lot of farmers, and they were saying how difficult it is to get labor. And I decided that I wanted to do something about that. I mean, here's a problem it is there. There's no denying that farmers have a problem getting labor. And autonomy is the solution. I spent a lot of times automating manufacturing lines, and farmers, for the most part, if you squint, they're just manufacturers. So it's more of the same. This time I'm focused on performing their field operations autonomously.
Oh, that's cool. So, and I think that's it's a big goal, and I think many have tried, and I think that hopefully you're able to break into that, and definitely I think it's something that could be beneficial to a lot of farmers, and be able to make it so that they can continue to make a living and be successful. And so with that, now as you to kind of look a bit into the futures, to where you see your business going, kind of where it's headed, kind of what's the next 6 to 12 months, where do you see that next 6 to 12 months taking you?
So we spent the last 3 years really developing the technology in terms of monitoring and controlling, path planning, just the autonomy system in and of itself, just the communications, and there's a lot of spinning plates, and you got to keep them all up in the air. And what we're doing now is we are taking it mainstream now. So we're working with a lot of organizations, creating autonomous systems for their operations. And that's what we're doing full time right now.
Give us an idea of what's kind of the status of the business. Is that, hey, or you're the solo guy doing it all, you've got 100 employees, millions of dollars in revenue, you've taken over the farming industry by storm, and everybody is buying your products, or anywhere in between? So kind of where is it, or what's the status of things as is?
Yeah, I would say it's in between, but right now we have 15 people. All of them, all but 2 of the employees have spent a portion of their career in the agriculture industry. A lot of them came from the Climate Corporation. Let me see, 5 of us are farm boys, grew up on a farm. All my software, mechanical, electrical hardware, all of them spent some time in agriculture. And so we are productizing our autonomous system at this point in time. And then later this fall, we're going to be coming out with an autonomous system that you can put on your tractor, and you can start deploying autonomy on your own.
Sounds like it'll be an exciting time and a great place to be and a great future ahead of the business. So that's awesome. So
Absolutely.
with that, now as we kind of reach the present day of your journey and even looking a bit into the future as to where things are headed, it's a great time to jump to the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode. So with that, first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
So probably the worst decision, or I guess, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So when you start a company, just be careful about commitments. Meaning that if there's a lot of people that want to jump on the bandwagon, but they're not there for the long term. So just keep an eye out for that.
I think that's an easy one. It's an easy mistake to make, and sometimes a hard one to avoid, is because one, I think everybody goes into doing their own business, doing a startup, and getting something going. And a lot of times you think, oh, everybody's going to work as hard as I am, or everybody's going to be as committed. And yet you'll have, just like in, fair weather fan in sports, you'll have some that if the going's good and they're making lots of money and everything's perfect and then they're there for the company. As soon as there's a hiccup, they're saying, I'm out and I don't want to do this anymore. And you'll have some people that are really committed and want to make it go a bit, and you'll have everybody in between. And to sift through and always identify who those people are and which ones are the right one for the business and the culture is that it can take some time and effort, and it's certainly something you have to learn by experience. I think that's a great one. Second question I always ask is, now if you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
The culture of your company is dictated by the first 5 people you hire. And so be very, very careful about the right attitude. And every company I started, if you looked at the culture of the company, it is the first 5 people. They really set it. So that's the best advice I can give.
No, I think that is definitely a great piece of advice. And it's one that, it's interesting. The hires you make are some of the most impactful. And a lot of times it kind of almost goes back to that first point as well. But, a lot of times when you're in a startup mode, especially, you get an itch or you get a desire and you feel a need to get someone hired because you're overwhelmed or you got too many things to do, or you're trying to get orders out, or you're trying to make customers happy. And so you rush to fill out, that seat with a warm body thinking they'll get do or make do. And yet in the long run, it can be much more impactful. So I think that's great to think about, who are these first 5 people, because they're going to really be a lot of that foundational team and kind of set that culture. So I think that's a great piece of advice.
Yep.
So now as we wrap up, and if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, and find out more?
You can either go to our website, sabantoag.com, or you can just DM me on Twitter at sabantoag.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out to you, contact you, support a great business, and find out more. And if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show to share your journey. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review, because we want to make sure that everyone finds out about all these awesome journeys. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Craig, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
All right. Well, thank you, Devin.